So, have you ever felt that no matter how much you pour into things, it's just, well, never enough?
Hmm.
Like there's this constant drain on your internal reserves, and no amount of rest seems to really recharge you.
That feeling, that persistent depletion
Yeah,
that often signals we're heading into burnout territory is definitely more than just being tired.
exactly. Today on the deep dive, we're tackling burnout head on. It's not your everyday stress, it's a deeper state emotional, physical, mental exhaustion.
Right, caused by prolonged or just excessive stress over time.
And to really get a handle on it, we've looked at several, well, really compelling sources, haven't we, offering different perspectives.
We have personal accounts, some insightful articles. They really detail the experience of burnout, its impact, and importantly, how people recover.
Yeah, we got stories from Joe, a lawyer, Alina Halonen, an entrepreneur also navigating ADHD, Austin Bill Cack, who is juggling a big job in his own business.
And Laura, a young person dealing with all the pressures of modern life. It's quite a diverse range.
It really shows how widespread this is. So our goal today, our mission for this deep dive, is to go beyond just defining burnout. We want to understand its nuances, how it actually shows up in people's lives, what causes it.
And crucially, give you, our listener, some practical, actionable strategies, things you can actually use to prevent it or recover if you need to.
Exactly. Actionable insights, not just definitions.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack the core of it. What fundamentally is burnout?
Well, at its heart, burnout usually has three key components, as Alina Halonen's article explains quite well.
Okay.
First, there's emotional exhaustion. You feel drained, like you can't really cope with the demands anymore.
Right.
Second, physical exhaustion, that persistent fatigue, lack of energy, even if you think you're resting enough.
Uh-huh.
And third, mental exhaustion. This often looks like cynicism, feeling detached, negative about your work or activities,
Yeah.
plus a sense of, well, inefficacy, like your efforts don't matter.
That feeling of inefficacy.
Wow.
Wow. So it's definitely more than just feeling tired after a busy week then. How is it really different from just, normal stress? Laura mentioned that distinction.
Yeah, that's a really critical point. Normal stress is usually a response to something specific, short term, a deadline, a big event.
Sure.
Burnout, though, it develops gradually. It creeps up on you. It comes from that prolonged, unmanaged stress, feeling constantly overwhelmed, unable to keep up. Laura described that perfectly, trying to keep all those plates spinning at once,
Yeah, that constant pressure.
leading to that deep sense of being drained.
Right. Okay, so normal stress might be like a sudden spike in your workload, maybe, but burnout is more like this persistent low hum of pressure that just never lets up.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it.
That makes sense. And I like thinking about our energy levels here, like a bank account.
Oh, yeah, that analogy works really well.
Yeah.
Normal stress might be like a few unexpected bills. They dip your balance temporarily. But burnout, that's like constant large withdrawals over a long time, with hardly any deposits going in. Eventually, the account gets critically low, maybe even empty.
Right, completely overdrawn. Okay, let's make this more concrete with those personal stories. First, Jo, the lawyer, 20 years in the field, loved her work, but
Yes, genuinely passionate. But as she shared, she really struggled with boundaries. Work and personal life just blurred together.
leading to.
Consistently long hours, neglecting her own needs, it just wasn't sustainable.
And didn't this lead to a pretty major health issue for her?
Absolutely. Severe illness and then diagnosis of type 1 diabetes, which is unusual, right? Typically shows up much earlier in life.
In her 30s, yeah.
Exactly. And Jo herself felt, in her words, that her body had to shout loudly to get her attention after years of ignoring the signs.
Wow, her body's shouting at her. That's a stark reminder of the physical toll, isn't it?
It really is. Very real physical consequences.
Okay, then there's Alina, the entrepreneur with ADHD. Her journey sounds incredibly demanding, too.
Alina's story highlights how even positive things, like passion and drive, can contribute to burnout in a high-pressure situation like entrepreneurship.
Right, building a business is inherently stressful.
Uncertainty, long hours.
Mm.
For Alina, having ADHD, that tendency towards hyperfocus sometimes meant she neglected her own needs while pursuing her goals.
Mm.
And this built up into severe burnout. It affected her emotionally, sure, but also her cognitive functions and her physical health, like alarmingly high blood pressure.
The cognitive impact is striking, disrupted creativity, difficulty problem solving, even issues with working memory.
Exactly.
It really shows burnout isn't just feeling a bit down. It's like Prolonged stress floods your brain with cortisol, right? And over time, that can actually impair the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for planning, focus, decision-making.
Precisely. It's
Yeah.
not just feeling foggy. There's a real biological underpinning to those difficulties. It affects how your brain works.
Which then impacts your performance, your satisfaction, creating this negative feedback loop.
Absolutely. And then Austin Belkak, juggling that demanding job and building his own business, cultivated culture. His story really hits home that feeling of relentless pressure in our always-on world.
Oh, definitely. He described being totally saturated with work, checking his phone constantly, even during meals, his commute. The detail that struck me was him admitting he'd neglect messages from friends because he felt this overwhelming need to reply to potential clients immediately.
That constant connectivity, the pressure to be always available, it's a huge burnout driver today, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Austin was open about having panic attacks, anxiety, clear signs his body and mind were protesting. He also mentioned something he called comparison syndrome.
Ah, yes, that feeling of never measuring up to what you see online.
Exactly. Comparing yourself to those often curated success stories.
That pressure to keep up, the fear of falling behind. I think many of us can relate to that, even without juggling multiple businesses. And finally, Laura. Her experience as a young person trying to manage everything.
Laura's story really shows burnout isn't just a work thing. She was trying to excel, give 100% everywhere, studies, part-time job, family, friends, hobbies, all at once.
An impossible standard.
Totally. And that intense internal pressure led to feeling emotionally and physically wiped out. And crucially, she lost the joy in things she used to love. Felt like a failure if she wasn't perfect everywhere.
Yeah, the common thread seems to be this unsustainable level of demand, whether it's external or internal, just overwhelming our ability to cope.
Right. An imbalance.
So let's dig into those contributing factors. Alina's article mentions specific mismatches, right? That can lead to burnout.
Yes. She outlined 6 key areas where a chronic mismatch between you and your situation significantly raises the risk.
Okay, what are they?
First, workload, just consistently too much to do. Second, control, feeling like you lack autonomy or influence. Third, reward, not enough recognition, appreciation, or compensation for your efforts.
Lack of reward.
Fourth, community, lacking supportive relationships or a sense of belonging. Fifth, fairness, feeling there's inequity in workload, pay, or how you're treated. And sixth, values, a clash between your personal values and what your work or life demands.
And you can really see those playing out in the stories. Joe's workload and lack of boundaries hit her sense of control.
Definitely.
Alina's entrepreneurial world probably had imbalances in workload control, maybe reward at times.
Likely, yes, especially during challenging periods.
Austin's constant connectivity, that hustle, strained his sense of control, maybe clashed with deeper values about balance.
Plausibly, yeah.
And Laura, that immense pressure created an unmanageable workload and a feeling of having no control over her own energy. You know, thinking about Laura, even though she was doing things she liked, like hobbies, the lack of internal reward, the joy being replaced by pressure, that almost feels like a reward mismatch too, in a way.
That's a really insightful point, absolutely. When the intrinsic reward disappears, even from enjoyable activities, it contributes to that depletion. These persistent mismatches create fertile ground for burnout.
Okay. So we've got the definition, the causes. Let's talk impact. We touched on physical symptoms, but let's go a bit deeper. Joe's diabetes diagnosis.
A stark, direct link between chronic stress and physical illness.
Yeah. And Alina's dangerously high blood pressure, another clear physiological response.
Right. And Austin's panic attacks.
Significant signals the body's being pushed too far. Like Joe said, sometimes our bodies have to shout when we ignore the quieter warnings.
And it's not just physical, is it? Alina mentioned the cognitive effects.
Yeah, impaired creativity, problem solving, even working memory. That can seriously hinder your performance and job satisfaction, creating that vicious cycle we talked about, feeding feelings of inefficacy, which is a core part of burnout.
And Laura's experience really drove home the emotional impact, that profound emotional drain, losing joy in things she loved, feeling hopeless. Yeah, it paints such a vivid picture when things that used to bring pleasure just become more sources of stress.
The emotional toll can be huge, affecting your whole outlook, your relationships.
Definitely. It can really change your perspective on life.
Okay, this is all crucial for recognizing the signs. But the most important question is, what can we actually do about it? Let's get into practical strategies. Prevention, recovery, Joe moving to part-time work.
That was a huge step. Her conscious choice to prioritize her well-being over work demands, Setting firm boundaries, no weekends, no skipping meals, a real turning point.
Yeah.
And Laura realizing she had to prioritize and using that simple tool, a daily list. It sounds basic, but it's about making deliberate choices about your energy and time.
Right.
So for you, listening, maybe ask, where could you set clearer boundaries? Where could you prioritize more consciously?
That's a great practical takeaway. And Joe also found mindfulness really helpful.
Yes, she found incorporating mindfulness gave her small, vital moments to release stress and improve focus. And I love how she demystified it.
Me too.
It's not about needing special settings or anything. It's about using our innate ability to just be present, right here, right now, with what we have.
Yeah, her simple practices, the pause, focusing on breath, mindfully listening to music, gratitude journaling, a body scan, it makes it feel achievable, not like some lofty goal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And her definition of self-care,
Yeah.
simply making time just for you, often doing nothing without distractions. That's powerful. It contrasts so much with the commercialized version we often see.
For being
Uh,
important. Austin's story about completely disconnecting on vacation also really stood out. That mail on holiday idea.
Oh yeah, creating a total break.
Mm-hmm.
Setting up that email filter to just delete work emails while away, that shows the impact of a true break.
Mm-hmm.
And his advice, take at least 3 full days to really disconnect from all stress sources. It highlights that real recovery often needs intentional separation. Alina echoed this too, saying sometimes just doing nothing at home is better than a busy holiday.
That makes sense, avoiding more cognitive load. And Austin's tips for managing technology seems so relevant. Turning off notifications, except essential ones.
Game changer, right?
Yeah.
Liberating yourself from that constant pull, it lets you focus, reduces that underlying anxiety of needing to respond instantly.
Definitely.
And scheduling specific times to check messages instead of constant monitoring puts you back in control. It's worth thinking about those stats, how often we check our phones, how many hours we spend, and the link between more phone time and higher stress makes you wonder, what small tech tweaks could you make?
Good question. Seeking support also seemed key for both Laura and Austin.
Yeah, Laura sharing her struggles with family and friends was a turning point for her, led to that realization about prioritizing. And Austin, using Talkspace, shows how valuable professional help can be. It's a reminder that it's okay to seek help. It's strength, not weakness.
Absolutely. And we can't forget sleep. Austin really emphasized that.
He did. His dive into sleep hygiene, consistent bedtime routines, reducing blue light, night shift glasses, avoiding screens.
The blue light thing is huge.
Yeah. And even mentioning things like specific teas or sleep stories, it just underscores how foundational good sleep is for preventing and recovering from burnout. The Mayo Clinic recommends about 7 hours for adults. It's not a luxury, it's essential.
A biological need for resilience.
Exactly.
Helena's advice to actively fill your reserves also really hit home, doing things totally unrelated to work that bring joy.
Yes. Gardening, dog training, creative workshops, time in nature, things that genuinely recharge you, not out of obligation, but for pure enjoyment.
That seems vital for long-term balance.
Crucial for building resilience. It fosters a more holistic life.
And finally, that recurring theme of self-compassion. Joe saying, be kind to yourself. Learning takes time.
And Laura's message to stop shitting all over yourself. I like that phrase Joe used too.
Yeah. And Austin emphasizing kindness to your own brain. It all points to treating ourselves like we'd treat a friend going through it.
That self-compassion is such a powerful antidote to the harsh inner critic that fuels burnout. Recognizing recovery is a journey, not a quick fix, with setbacks.
Yeah.
That's key for sustainable well-being.
So, wrapping up the core message here. Burnout is serious. It comes from prolonged imbalance. Recognizing those signs, the exhaustion, cynicism, feeling ineffective, and taking proactive steps are just vital for your well-being, your fulfillment.
Absolutely. And as these diverse stories show, if you're feeling this way, you are definitely not alone. It's widespread, affects all sorts of people.
We really encourage you, take a moment, reflect honestly. What resonated most with you from these experiences, these strategies? What's one small thing you could actually do today? Maybe just a few mindful breaths. Turn off one notification. Start prioritizing your well-being.
And one final thought to leave you with. In a world that often glorifies being busy, nonstop productivity, maybe real success, true productivity isn't about doing more. Maybe it's about cultivating a sustainable, balanced way of being.
Right. What if intentionally doing less, creating space for rest and rejuvenation? What if that actually lets you achieve more of what truly matters in the long run? Something to think about.